This video is sponsored by Squarespace.
Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome back to a new video. Today we're going to be doing probably what's going to be my last gear review, gear talk for quite some time. And the reason for that being we have a lot of other kind of exciting videos coming up that I think you guys will really enjoy. It's all about just getting outside, shooting, having fun, camping, and I'm pretty excited to start making those videos. But until then, we are going to be talking about probably my favorite camera that I've used in a very long time. This is the Fuji GFX 100S, and I want to explain to you guys why I've been loving this camera so much, what I've been using it for, and give you a bit of a longer term review since I've had this camera for quite some time now. So let's go ahead and dive in. So first things first, the Fuji GFX 100S, 102 megapixel medium format camera that is absolutely a dream to use. I've now had this camera since May of last year, so coming up on almost a year, and I've been shooting with it pretty much more than any other camera that I own. I think there are many reasons why this camera fits so well into the way that I shoot and how I like to shoot. But for starters, I think it's just a really nice extension of my eye and the way that I see things. I think the medium format sensor complements my work really well. I think the slower pace of shooting and being really intentional with shooting this camera has really helped my photography a lot. In a lot of different ways. You know, I used to just kind of spray and pray constantly, especially using full frame cameras. You can just hold the shutter button down constantly. And this is definitely a slower workflow for sure. I think for me, I shoot pretty much everything from landscapes to portraits, lifestyle, interior stuff, architecture, and this camera really does it all. I love the ability to use all of Fuji's amazing glass. My two favorite lenses are definitely the 80mm 1.7 and the 110mm f2, both of which are incredible lenses, amazing depth, and I love that you can shoot at pretty solid apertures still for being on a medium format sensor. f1.7 on this crazy sensor is absolutely insane. There's like almost too much bokeh, so I don't typically shoot wide open with those lenses. But Fuji's lens selection for this system is pretty incredible, and they also have a really great roadmap for lenses that are going to be coming out in the near future. I think if there was one lens that I want to pick up, it's probably going to be the 32 to 64mm f4, which is a zoom lens. I used it recently on a trip to San Francisco, and I shot some really cool portraits and landscapes with it. Just so easy to have a zoom lens, and I think that in tandem with the 80mm and the 110 will be pretty much all that I will need. Now, when it comes to the actual camera itself, I think why this camera is so enjoyable to use is because I think it just is a fun shooting experience. Not to say that other cameras aren't, especially, but I think in terms of like a digital camera, I usually don't have a lot of fun. You know, it's much more fun to shoot with film cameras in my opinion. But I think this camera specifically for me has been a joy to use, and I really look forward to picking it up. I have a lot of fun shooting with it, and pretty much every time the images are just great. Like, I really enjoy a lot of the stuff that I'm making with this camera. I think it allows me to really be creative and worry a lot less about like what I'm shooting with. And when a camera just feels, again, like such an effortless extension of yourself and your creativity and what you like to shoot, I think that's a good sign that you're using the right piece of equipment. Now, as I mentioned, the medium format workflow is pretty slow, especially when you get onto the computer and you start editing these files. They are massive. You know, you have these huge 16-bit files that oftentimes are north of 200 megabytes each. And, you know, you don't realize how big that actually is until you start editing these files. They are massive. There's so much detail, so much depth. And I think this is another big reason of why this camera has been really great for me, is because I love to kind of have a blank slate when it comes to editing, and the fact that you can really manipulate these files however you would like, and they really don't break, especially when you're messing around with colors and cropping and all that fun stuff. The image is just so robust. You can really do a lot with it, and I've found that I'm able to really kind of hone in and pick whatever style I want once I've imported everything into Lightroom, and I can edit, go through these photos. But again, it's a really slow workflow, and it does take a lot longer to edit these photos versus other ones. You got to really worry about all the little details. There's a lot more Photoshop involved and cleaning up the photos because you can see every little detail and every little speck. But for me, I think it really, again, comes down to how does it suit my work? How does it play into the stuff that I like to shoot? And for me, it works really well. Now, over the last almost year now, I've taken this camera on tons of different shoots, and I really do feel like for the most part, it works really well in almost any environment that I've put it in. I think when it comes to action or anything high-paced, I think something like the R5 is going to be a much better option for you. For me, when I'm shooting something kind of slow, like a portrait session or photos of an interior space or landscape photos, this camera works great. It's obviously pretty slow, I think at 5 frames a second, which is actually crazy considering how big these files are. 5 frames is more than enough and pretty crazy to think about. But you're not going to be shooting any sort of crazy action or movement or anything like that. This is much more of like a take the camera out, set up your shot, and then take the photo versus, being able to kind of walk around aimlessly and shoot different kinds of motion and subjects, moving in and out of stuff. I think you're going to be much better suited with an R5 or something similar to that. I haven't shot any video on this camera. I don't really intend to. I didn't buy this camera to shoot video. However, I think the video specs are pretty great. For me, I don't really worry about shooting on this camera, anything besides just photos. Again, I think I love this camera for what it does for me on the photo side of things. I haven't even actually ever turned this onto the movie mode from the still side. So I don't even know like what the video actually even looks like. Again, we don't really use this camera for that. We use the Sony FX3, which we're filming on right now. And I don't know, you guys tell me, but I think it looks pretty great. Again, when it comes to the GFX 100S, I think specifically, you guys probably saw this in our trip to Alaska. That was actually the first trip with this camera, and I think it really allowed me to shoot with this camera on a job, which was really fun. We were there for the tourism board, and we got some really incredible images. I shot on this camera almost 100% of the time, and I really feel like we got an amazing collection of images over, I think, the 9 days that we were there. And I think what it comes down to is it allows me to shoot a bunch, and then again when I import it into Lightroom, I have this again blank slate that I can really hone in and dial my images and really kind of figure out which collection I want to share and keep everything cohesive and looking nice. And this camera just is an easy way to do that for me. I again have not really had a lot of issues with editing or manipulating these files whatsoever. I think Fuji in general is just kind of a leader when it comes to colors. I think the colors in all of these photos, even the JPEGs, look great. I don't really shoot a lot of JPEG on here, but the raw files especially, the colors just absolutely gorgeous. And I think especially again on that Alaska trip, we were able to shoot in so many different environments. And I think it really allowed me to kind of put this camera through its paces. I've also taken this camera everywhere from Washington to Colorado, Joshua Tree, all up and down the California coast to Seattle and back. And again, it's really just a joy to use. I've had so much fun using the system coming from the original Fuji GFX 100. I think the 100S is a pretty significant improvement in a lot of ways. For me, the 100 just felt a little bit more clunky. I did enjoy the bigger body size. For me, I just love having a vertical grip as well as a horizontal. And this, you don't. You just have this like little plate that you can buy, which I do actually really like. But this camera's really small for what it is. It's great. But I do think over the original Fuji GFX 100, this camera is a lot more robust and refined. And I think it really shows when you're actually shooting with the camera. The shooting experience is great. Again, this camera is a medium format camera, so the sensor size is a lot bigger than your traditional full frame camera. And I think that really shows, especially in the depth of these images. I think that's probably my favorite part about like how the images look from this camera is you get this amazing depth to the photos. Not only are the colors and obviously all that really easy to edit and fun to mess around with, but I think just the way that the medium format sensor renders everything, it's just beautiful. I think it really kind of makes things almost larger than life, and it really brings all the natural detail and color that you're hoping to kind of achieve within a photo to life. And for the kind of work that I do, I think medium format sensor is just a really fun way to express myself as an artist. So with all this being said, the GFX 100S has been kind of my favorite tool that I've been using for the last almost year now. And I think it will be the main tool that I'll be using for this year to come as well. I think the entire system just fits my workflow really nicely, and I've been really happy with it. If you guys want to check out any of the photos that I've shot with this camera, I'll leave a link to my website down below, and most of my website is shot with this camera. But yeah, I just have had a lot of fun using it, and I'm excited to bring you guys along on some of the trips that we have planned in the next couple months. Essentially, I'm getting actually a rooftop tent installed on my 4Runner, and we're gonna be out camping, shooting landscape stuff. I think it's gonna be just a blast, and we're gonna bring you guys along with, so that should be pretty fun. All in all, I just wanted to check in, say hey, hope you guys are doing well, and kind of share a little bit about why this camera's been so fun to use. Again, if you have any questions about this camera system at all or anything remotely related to it, just leave a comment down below. Thanks again for watching. Hope you guys are all doing well, and yeah, I'm super excited for this year. I think I feel very focused and excited about the kind of stuff that we're making on this channel, and I'm excited to bring you guys along with. So with all that being said, take care and we'll see you guys soon.
Before this video wraps up, I did want to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, which is Squarespace, for sponsoring today's episode. If you are looking to create a custom website from scratch without all the coding and hassles that come with it, Squarespace is by far the best choice out there, in my opinion, to make a beautiful website. They have easy to use templates, which make creating a beautiful theme that much easier, 24/7 customer support for all of your questions, and tons of customizable design and layout choices to really make your website stand out. For a photographer like myself, running a small business with multiple different kinds of needs, Squarespace really just makes sense. If you're interested in trying out Squarespace for yourself, go to squarespace.com/Samuel Elkins, which is in the description, to get 10% off your first website or domain purchase. As always, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and we'll see you next week.